First in our mini-series that we'll be doing across May as we get started in preparation for our class that will start on June 3rd. Nico will be able to walk us through that in more detail and share more on the class. But tonight we noticed that many people are looking to transition into cybersecurity, and we want to demystify some of that language that may be a barrier to moving into that job transition. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our CEO, Nico Darby, who will be walking us through our session tonight. Nico?
Beautiful. Thank you, Asia, for the wonderful introduction. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Today we'll be diving deeper into the cybersecurity terminologies, as Asia stated, and demystifying some of the jargon that's commonly used within the industry. Our goal is to make sure that you guys get that proper understanding so that you can easily transition into the field. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so here's our agenda for today. So first, we'll provide you all with an introduction to Orboltix so that you can know who we are and what we do. And then we'll provide you all with the popular cybersecurity terms. Now, this will just be for week one. Week two, we'll go deeper into other terminologies so that you can understand what all of the terminologies mean, or at least most of the popular ones. All right, so this is just the first batch. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the introduction. So, what is Orboltix? So, we're a software engineering and cybersecurity consulting company, and we also provide exclusive software as a service products, which some are powered by AI, and we also utilize quantum computing for some of our softwares as well. And our mission overall is to develop a future of unity, hope, and serenity for mankind through technology. So we're a next generation company. We believe in the future, and we believe in building the future for tomorrow, the best future for tomorrow for everyone. Okay. So what are some of our products? So we have the HipCompex, which is our video game series, the Phobia, which is our video conferencing application where you can meet with absolute privacy and security, and also the Golgi Apparatus, where you can buy computers, lab supplies, and security equipment, all at the best price. All right, so here's a quick glimpse at our game. And then we have the Phobia video conferencing application, and then the Golgi Apparatus tech store. All of this can be found on our official website at orboltix.com. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with some of these popular cybersecurity terms. All right. So here we are, a few popular cybersecurity terms that will be up for discussion today. So in many cases, you may wonder, well, what exactly is cybersecurity? Well, cybersecurity can be defined as the assessment of not only digital environments, but also physical environments as well, to assure of their absolute security and protection. All right, and we're actually going to go over something called the CIA triad in a bit. But with cybersecurity, you want to make sure that you have absolute confidentiality. You want to make sure that you have absolute integrity, and you want to also make sure that you have absolute availability, of course, to those with authorized access. All right. So that's cybersecurity in a nutshell, assuring of absolute protection and safety and security for your digital environments and also your physical environments. Now, you may be wondering, why physical? Wouldn't it just be security for physical? Well, not exactly. If you were to look more into a physical environment, let's say it's an office building. Let's say it's a government office building. If you were to look into a government office building, and let's say that someone decides to ease their way in after someone swipes their card to enter the facility. So let's say individual A swipes their card to enter the facility. Individual B will then sneak right in behind them after that door opens, and then potentially go into the security rooms, download particular footage that they weren't supposed to have, and then try to use it to blackmail the company. Those are things that we do not want to happen. So it's always crucial to make sure that that the physical sectors of cybersecurity are protected as well, because you don't want individuals with unauthorized access to get into particular facilities and steal certain data, or even upload certain types of worms or malware, which we'll be discussing soon, onto company devices or even personal devices. All right. So that's cybersecurity in a nutshell, and it's a beautiful field. It's a grand field with many, many branches, and you all will surely love what's to come with cybersecurity. All right. So let's go ahead and go to the next word here. So we have payload. So usually when you're listening to podcasts or even events on the news about cybersecurity events, you'll hear the term payload. It's commonly used in a sentence this way: the attacker has released their payload into the system. So what exactly is this payload? So the payload is actually malicious packages that are released into and executed within the victim's system. All right, so that's what the payload is. You can think of it as the package, the I wouldn't say care package, but malicious package that has been executed into the client system. All right, so that's what the payload is. And usually in cybersecurity, the goal is to make sure that this type of event is mitigated, and that's through something that we call risk mitigation. All right, so what you want to do in cybersecurity is focus on risk mitigation and in particular risk management. This is something that we'll be going over within our summer course on June the 3rd. Risk management and risk mitigation. Always within cybersecurity, you have to ensure that that there is very little to no risk. Now, will there ever be an event where there is absolutely no risk at all? Not really. It's very rare for that to be the case. But there is always a small percentage of risk, and you want to make sure that even the smallest percentage of risk is eradicated. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into that definition of risk. What exactly is the risk? So the risk is the chances of something bad happening. Let's say an attacker getting into a system. Let's say a certain type of cyber attack happening, such as denial of service. That is your risk. But also, risk can be defined as something else. Risk can be defined as threat times your vulnerability times your consequence. So what exactly is the threat? So the threat is the malicious actor, the attack that can potentially affect the systems. What is the vulnerability? Well, the vulnerability is the weakness within the system. What vulnerabilities does the company have? And you can see some companies don't even have antivirus. Some companies don't even have a budget for cybersecurity. All of that in itself, it can be defined as a vulnerability. Okay? And of course, the consequence, well, we know what the consequence will be. Data loss, whistleblowers, and many other things happening as a result of not covering up those particular risks. All right? So your threat times your vulnerability times your consequence will be your risk. Okay? And this is a discussion session, so I'll go ahead and open it up. So does anyone have any questions so far on cybersecurity, payload, or threat times vulnerability times consequence, which equals our risk? Any questions so far? All right. So let's go ahead and move forward to firewall. Okay. So what exactly is your firewall? So your firewall is commonly used to actually defend the particular network that you're on. You want to ensure that certain types of attacks and individuals with weird IP addresses are not able to get through to your network. So that firewall blocks out those malicious actors. But it also allows for information from your network to be transmitted and authorized information to be transmitted into your particular network. So that is your particular firewall. Okay. So remember, it blocks that unauthorized access. It blocks those particular attackers from actually entering into your system. It's always essential to have a firewall. And you can get this, of course, through your ISP. That's another term, ISP. You will see ISP everywhere when it comes to cybersecurity. All right. ISP is your internet service provider. Okay. So that's another term you'll see, ISP. There are a plethora of acronyms that you will see all over cybersecurity that you will need to know, especially when you get into environments with cybersecurity professionals. They will use the acronyms unlike ever before. You will hear them everywhere. And it is crucial to know exactly what those acronyms are. They can be some of the simplest of terms, but they will turn into an acronym. So you must know all of the acronyms. So ISP, Internet Service Provider, is another popular term. Okay? So what exactly is this ISP, Internet Service Provider? Well, it can be Verizon, it can be AT&T, whoever you choose to provide your internet. It can be SpaceX. They're your internet service provider. Okay? So they utilize those satellites and other forms of transmission of internet to provide you with the best connections possible. All right, even their fiber optic networks. Okay, so that is your ISP. All right, so we discussed what the firewall is. Now, what are some things that the firewall can protect you from? Well, we have malware versus ransomware. Okay, so these are two separate terms. You have your malware and you have your ransomware. So what exactly is malware? Well, of course, malware is the malicious, you can say software in some cases, but I'll say malicious package that is on your particular system. It can be a type of worm. It can be a type of scripting agent. That's essentially what your malware is. So it's that malicious package that's on your system, extracting data, sending it to the attacker, or even blocking services and not allowing you to utilize a particular service. So that will be your denial of service. All right. So that is what your malware is. Now, what is ransomware? What will ransomware be? Ransomware is when someone utilizes something such as malware to get money. So let's say they took someone's, let's say that the attacker decided to say, oh, you know what, I don't want to obey HIPAA regulations. HIPAA will be the regulation that you have to follow for healthcare. They will say, I don't want to follow HIPAA regulations. I want to steal this person's healthcare data and sell it. But I want to get money as a result of it. So what would this ransomware be? So they will call the hospital and they'll tell them, hey, I have this particular politician's data, right? This is what they'll do. They'll call the hospital and say that they have the politician's data. And they'll say that they want $10 million for it, right? So they'll say they want $10 million for it, and then the hospital will have to pay the person $10 million in hopes that they will receive that data back, right? So they aren't guaranteed to get anything back as a result of ransomware. They aren't guaranteed at all. But in many cases, these hospitals, they do pay the attacker in hopes of getting the data back. So that's what ransomware would be. All right. So this is in the case that they take someone's data. There are also scenarios where ransomware could be utilized to particularly shut down the system. So denial of service, right? So that ransomware could be used, let's say, for example, to stop individuals from using Facebook, right? So people won't be able to get on there and post their little selfies and communicate with their old friends. And that'll cause a big hit to the company, right? So then what will the attacker do? They will call up Facebook and they'll say, hey, I want $100 million or else we'll keep it shut down, right? So that's a case of ransomware, okay? And luckily there are firewalls out there that can protect against malwares and ransomware. But as we'll go into on June the 3rd, sometimes that doesn't even matter if you have a firewall. Sometimes people open the door for the big bad wolf. And how exactly do they do it? Well, by opening up certain types of emails, phishing emails and so forth. And we'll be going over a lot of this next week, some of these common terms like phishing. All right. So that covers your firewall, your malware, and your ransomware. Okay. And remember, next week we'll be going over a lot of these, a lot of examples of attacks that can happen in the cases of malware and ransomware. All right. So we'll be more specific. Okay, so now it's time for a little history lesson on hackers versus crackers. So, commonly in society, you hear of the term hackers. Whenever someone has broken into a system, you hear that they're a hacker. However, originally that term didn't start out as a threat actor. Hacker wasn't known as the threat actor or the antagonist, as threat actor can be known as. Instead, the hacker was the one that was patching up the system and making sure that it was good. The cracker was the one cracking into the system and messing up the system and stealing data. That was what the cracker was. However, that term has been pretty much diminished from common computational talk in cyber talk. Now we just say hacker for everything. So that's an interesting history on the terms hackers versus crackers, and it's one that is very crucial to know of, right? Okay. So any questions from there? Any questions on firewall, malware versus ransomware, or hackers versus crackers?
No questions. Like I already had an idea about all of these terms because I took my dad's a software engineer, so he talks about it a lot. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So tell us more about what your dad does on the cyber side. Does he simply build the software, or does he handle the cyber side of the software?
So he's more onto the database side. Like he works on databases and the DOS system. If you have heard of the company named Deep Kiran Foods, mm-hmm. It's one of the companies that imports Indian food into US, Canada, Australia, and other countries. So he works. I'm from India, so he works from there, and he's just that's all I know. He's working on a DOS-based system, and he's right now figuring out on how to get all of data from DOS-based system into the newer systems.
Beautiful. Yes, so that is a very beautiful path to take for cybersecurity, making sure that data is protected, protecting from, and we'll go over this next week, particular man-in-the-middle type of attacks and things of that particular nature. So that is a beautiful path that he's taken with the cybersecurity. Now, is this a path that you're interested in taking? Or are you looking to approach cybersecurity from another angle?
I am right now open to all the possibilities. I came here to the United States with the knowledge of Python and some SQL. Mm-hmm. And I'm a rising junior right now. And last semester I went to University of Pennsylvania, and I did a hackathon there, attended a hackathon there, and I basically looked over one of our ideas, web design, mm-hmm. and got in the top 10 there. But and I used to so it was basically a startup, but I worked with them for 3 or 4 months before. Yeah, and I explored more towards the web design side, like JavaScript and React, but mm-hmm. I had to drop it because of my finals and everything coming closer. Right. Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. It's good that you got that experience directly in the field and was able to mm-hmm. do some in the software engineering and cyber side. So getting your hands messy with both. That's always crucial. It's always advocated that if you're going to approach anything software engineering or data related, that you have some of that cybersecurity under your belt.
Oh, yeah. I definitely think it's a good idea. like I'm just exploring right now, and I would definitely love to learn more about different areas into computer science, like as much as possible.
Absolutely. And you're at the right place. We're going to make sure that you know about every single important area for this day and age.
Perfect.
All right. So let's go ahead and continue from here. So so next we're going to go ahead and go over the CIA triad. So this isn't Central Intelligence Agency. When many people see CIA, they think Central Intelligence Agency. In fact, this is one of the building blocks of cybersecurity. All right. So this CIA triad, this is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Okay. So let's go ahead and break down each of these definitions individually, so that you all can have a nice understanding of each. Okay. So what exactly is the confidentiality part of the CIA triad? Well, this is essentially making sure that any data or any information, whether it's at the physical or digital level, that it is safe, secure, and of course secret, hence that confidential sector. So that's what the confidentiality is. Now, you're probably wondering, well, that's confidentiality. Well, what is integrity? All right. So integrity makes sure that whatever you're protecting is trustworthy, that it hasn't been altered or manipulated to any degree. All right. So that's the integrity sector of it. And then, of course, you have availability, making sure that whatever you're trying to keep confidential and whatever you're trying to keep trustworthy via integrity is available. All right. So remember those denial of service, DDoS attacks. That can cause the A in the triad to not be available. So you won't have that availability within your CIA triad if you get an attack like that. So overall, when it comes to cybersecurity, so we're going back to point one now. When it comes to cybersecurity, making sure that you have that confidentiality, that you're confident in your data, that you know that it's safe, that you know that it's private. Making sure that you have that, making sure that you have the integrity, that it hasn't been altered or tampered or manipulated to any degree in any way, shape, or form, and making sure that the actual data or whatever you're protecting is available. That is crucial for cybersecurity. So that is why it's a building block of cybersecurity, the CIA triad. Okay.
Wouldn't it be the job of a firewall to make sure that all three, like CIA, all like CIA, all of that is like it's like stand like your data is secure,
yes,
and like it's available to you, and like it's not been altered with. Isn't that the job of a firewall, like, or is it different?
Absolutely.
Like you have to,
yeah. So the CIA triad, the firewall does ensure that you do have that confidentiality, that you do have that integrity, and that you do have that availability. And how exactly does it do that? Well, the firewall is blocking out those malicious actors. So in terms of integrity, it makes sure that the data is not able to be manipulated. Because some attackers will just go into a system, throw in a quick script kiddie, and they can pretty much obfuscate or mess up your data and make it unreadable, or they will even delete some data. So that's why the firewall is important there. When it comes to confidentiality, making sure that it's secret and safe, well, the firewall blocks out that attacker. So they're not even able to come in to mess up the confidentiality sector of the triad. And then availability. The firewall blocks the attacker from being able to send in certain payloads, as we mentioned earlier, that can cause your data to not be available. So shutting down certain systems and so forth. Only once they get into that network can they decide to shut down the whole network or mess up the code so that a certain application isn't running. And that'll cause a loss of availability. But that firewall makes sure that this whole CIA triad is in compliance. All right. So any other questions from there?
Nothing.
All right. Okay, so so now that we know about the CIA triad, let's go ahead and go over some of the networks. So all throughout cybersecurity, you're going to hear talk on a plethora of different networks that are out there. And some of the examples here are just a few of them. There are many other networks rather than the ones that we just had here. And during the course on June the 3rd, essentially what we're going to be going over are the 7 domains of a typical infrastructure. All right. So you have your user, workstation, your local area network, and so forth. We'll be going over that in more detail during the course to make sure that you have a good understanding of each and how attackers would approach each of them. All right. So that'll go back under risk. You want to make sure that all of these things are protected. So we do only have about 3 minutes, but I'll go ahead and go over this expeditiously so that you can have a full understanding of each of these. Okay. So what exactly is your virtual private network? Well, your virtual private network, essentially what this does is allow you to utilize a virtual environment to host your network, and it masks your IP address. Okay. So when your IP address is masked, your ISP or internet service provider isn't even able to tell, oh, this is that person's IP address. Instead, it's thinking that it's someone that's in Canada or someone that's in Japan or somewhere else around the world. And that's one of the benefits of this virtual private network. You're not able to be easily tracked. Okay. So that's what the virtual private network is for. And more individuals are switching to VPN because more and more companies want to track what you're doing, who you are. They want to steal your data and sell it to data brokers. But these virtual private networks are making sure that people are fully anonymous on the networks. So that's why the virtual private network is so important. Okay. Now, of course, there comes the cons of this virtual private network. Many of them are hosted by certain companies. They have their own servers that they consider to be their virtual private network, and then you will utilize their servers that will mask your IP and so forth. Many say, and of course the companies state, that they aren't taking your data at all, but who knows? No one knows what they're doing with the data. No one knows. So of course you may be having your IP address masked, but the company that you're using to mask your IP address through their VPN, they have access to all of your data. They have access. So unless they're using a type of end-to-end encryption technology or so forth, but even then, there's still a chance that the data can be going into one of their databases, and all they'll have to do is decrypt it. So do we truly have privacy is the question. Do we truly have privacy with a virtual private network? Well, that question remains to be answered. More research will have to be done into the companies and their operations, given that they will allow someone to look at their IP. So that's virtual private network. Okay. Now you also have your, and I want to combine these two together. You have your WLAN and your LAN. So what are those? So you have your wireless local area network and your local area network. Your local area network, that typically uses an Ethernet. Okay. So you'll have a cord actually plugged into your device to allow it to run the internet. Okay. Your wireless local area network will utilize what we call Wi-Fi. All right. So you don't have to have the Ethernet cord plugged into your device at all. You'll just have a wireless connection to the internet. Okay. And remember, the internet, that is a part of what we call your wide area network. Okay. So that's the WAN that you see here. Oh, and before we switch over to WAN, with the LAN, that's usually in your local area. So, for example, your home or your business building, or the group of business buildings that you have that are close to each other. Your wide area network, on the other hand, this can span from states, cities, countries, all over the globe. So that's your wide area network. And with the internet, in general, the internet is a part of the wide area network. Think about it. You're utilizing all these satellites to connect all the networks together. And you do this via your wide area network. Okay, so that's what provides you with the internet overall. Having all of the connections all over the world connected to one another so that we can share and transmit information. So that is our wide area network. Beautiful, beautiful invention overall by our U.S. Department of Defense. So the internet overall is probably one of the most remarkable discoveries that we've had in computational history. It's allowed us all to become connected. It's allowed us all to advance in ways never before seen. It's even allowed us to be here today on this particular session, learning about popular cybersecurity terms. So overall, that's what your some of your networks are. And next week we'll be going deeper into other